Yo, yo, what's up, good people? It's the boys from the Phantom Geek Zone back once again. I'm Izzy,
I'm Riyaal.
and we're bringing you yet another review today. This time around, we're going to be tackling Iron Man 3,
Yeah, part of our MCU
part of our
recap series.
MCU recap series, yes, sir. And yeah, man, I don't know when last you saw this movie. I feel like I saw it once, maybe twice, around the early days when it came out. I believe it dropped in like 2013. And funny enough, I enjoyed it and then it kind of got ruined down the line while watching it. So by the time I finished the movie, I was like, I don't know. This time around, I enjoyed it a lot more throughout. Partly, of course, I knew what was going to come in terms of what ruined it,
Yeah.
but I didn't mind it as much as I did before. So before we get into it, just in terms of your overall opinion of it, would you say it improved, remained the same, did it get worse?
I would say maybe it stayed the same. Like,
Oh, okay.
not too much change.
Yeah.
I still really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was
Not too many negative opinions.
Yes. I was pleasantly surprised to have that opinion.
Yeah.
Not even by the end. Like as I'm watching, I'm like, wait, why didn't I like this movie again? And this is also the first, solo Iron Man movie where John Favreau, aka Happy Hogan, is not directing.
Okay. Yeah.
This was, co-written and directed by this guy called Shane Black. He's not huge, but he's kind of one of those if you know type of dudes. There's a movie he did with, I can't remember now if he did it with Robert Downey Jr. or Robert Downey just enjoyed one of his movies from back in the day. And where people might know him from as far as the more recent stuff, the movie The Nice Guys.
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure he directed it. Not too certain about the writing. Stand to be corrected, but
That's the Russell Crowe one.
Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling. Yeah, that's the
Shout
one.
out, go watch that movie. Really good movie.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Also, I haven't actually seen it.
Oh no, it's good.
I
It's
know
good.
people were raving
Yeah.
about it, again and again. And I think part of my thing with that movie is because I'm expecting more of a traditional comedy because it's labeled as a comedy. And then when I'm like, no, man. So I need to go back and understand that it's a different type of comedy, but still worthwhile according to what everyone else is saying. But that's pretty much the context and background of Shane Black. And then in terms of how he came into the picture, remember John Favreau wasn't too happy with Marvel handling him and trying to take over Iron Man 2. Which we also need to contextualize because it's very easy now to point everything at Kevin Feige, especially the negative stuff. But Iron Man 2 was the first, if not one of the first movies that Marvel produced under the Disney umbrella because there was only Iron Man 1 and Incredible Hulk that they did before then. So I think it's probably the larger machine that gave him issues. But again, back to Shane Black coming through, directing it, that would explain why, depending on your level of I suppose focus and deduction, why it had a different feel to the prior movies. Besides just the subject matter.
Yeah.
It's now a completely different director at the helm. And yeah, as I said, I definitely did enjoy it. And part of why I enjoyed it, to get right into it, if not, the biggest reason is we've spoken so many times about how Marvel doesn't want to go there with certain topics or, certain storytelling elements. Thor 2 stands out, given that it's one of our more recent reviews, number one, but number two, because we criticize them heavily for not doing this, which is, hey man, if you want to punish someone, punish them, kind of cross the line, if you will. And this movie reminded me that, hey, not only can Marvel do that when they want to,
they can
but
do it under Disney banner as well,
and there are many ways of doing it. It's not just a matter of, okay, make him completely fall apart or whatever. It could be as simple as, we obviously know Iron Man, it's the suits and all that, but okay, after all the success and the wins he's had in the past, separate him from the suit and then let's see how he copes. And which is pretty much what they did.
This movie,
So I think on that front, just speaking of it as a Tony Stark movie, grassroots type of thing, what's your take on it?
No, you brought that up perfectly. Like I really enjoyed separating the man from the suit. Gives you a bit of insight into his psyche. Really enjoy that, and then the fact that it actually went there with the panic attacks and the anxiety.
Yes,
and just shows the enormity of the situation of the Battle of New York. And it just shows the fallout of actually being, you know, you want to be a superhero. There are consequences to this.
Yeah.
And also, just even with the story itself, they went there a few times with
Mm.
like people just exploding.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
Even just Tony assuming Pepper died,
Mm.
and vice versa as well. You know,
Mhm.
they teased a few deaths, but obviously it didn't happen. Thankfully, up to you. Whether you want to say or not. But yeah, so I really like the take it went. It was very different from the I am Iron Man, nothing can hurt me. Now it's like I am Tony Stark, I am hurting.
Yeah.
You guys know I'm hurting. You know, not much I can do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you know, one of the additional elements that I enjoyed, you touched on the consequences of the battle in New York. I wanna, you know, zone in on that a little in the sense that this is exactly what you mean when you talk about a multiverse or a cinematic universe rather, because it's not just a matter of Captain America's movie is going to reference events from Iron Man's movie. We're just going to, you know, refer to events from the Thor movie. That's one element. But beyond that, if something happens today, let it spill over into tomorrow, i.e., the next movie in this particular case. I mean, okay, it wasn't too big of a gap in terms of releases. Avengers is 2012. This dropped in 2013. However, the fact that the most recent major battle is still taking effect in a subsequent movie, I think is something to acknowledge and celebrate. And I like how they approach it here, because it could have easily gone in the direction of Avengers 1.5, if you will. You know, like make the whole thing about that event, whereas they kept it focused on Tony, because this is an Iron Man movie, and it's like, okay, this guy who fell through, you know, who went through a wormhole into space and then fell all the way down. How did that impact him, and how does he continue with his life post that fact? I enjoyed that element. I enjoyed again the grassroots thing in the sense that we know Tony to be a genius, and part of what made the first Iron Man movie so great is just watching him get to work instead of building the suit.
And they started it off that way for this one. You know?
And they kept it going throughout. You know, there were so many times where you had to
the mechanic, you know.
The mechanic, you know. Pick up the spanner once again, get the tools going, fix the suit multiple times. Even the thing which I hated at first, but now I was like, okay, fine. With, you know, trying to get the suit to come to him and it taking a bit of time here and there, it shows the imperfection of the stuff that he's doing and that he needs to do a little more work, as opposed to in some, you know, earlier iterations where it feels like everything is now automatic and routine. Hey, Jarvis, do 1, 2, 3. Oh, he just comes in with a new suit and upgrade, and then we just roll with it. Now it's like we're showing the process of, you know, that taking place. I think speaking of the PTSD element, do you think they went in enough on it in any sense? You know, as far as how often it was referenced, how it was portrayed.
Look, yeah, it's a tough thing to talk about, but I don't know in what sense. Obviously, you never want to go through something like that. But I think for the type of tone of movie, I think the frequency and the way it was portrayed, I think it was fine. You know, it was just enough that when you forgot about it, it reminded you again and again and again to say that, okay, yeah, Tony, oh yes, he's sassy, he's whatever, but he's still, you know, it still affects him, and anything can kind of just set him off. And he's not in his right mind. And then that was also portrayed in the movie really well, him and Pepper having, you know, the relationship issues, as well as him just, you know, not being able to sleep. So I think it was done just right. So just enough for us who can't really understand to kind of understand, but not doing it too much where it affects the whole tone of the movie, but rather adds to it.
I think I'll pretty much, you know, say the same where that's concerned. I, of course, you know, have no say in terms of the accuracy and that sort of thing, but for me it was just a matter of, again, just going there if you want to put something on the table, which I suppose, you know, they deserve, you know, some recognition in that regard, that it wasn't a quick little sprinkle like, oh yeah, by the way, he's got, nah, you saw this thing actually, you know, get in his way multiple times. And even with, you know, the relationship with the kid, and he's like, no man, stop asking me about that, and he keeps coming back again. the restaurant or the bar that he was at with Rhodey when someone asked for an autograph. And I mean, it was Iron Man flying the rocket, into space, and that sent a trigger. And even the subtlety of how it came through when he was like, "Help me, Aaron," writing that message without even realizing that's what he did, and then having a panic attack out there. And so I like that it wasn't a quick, "Oh yeah," after that, I wasn't right in my mind, and then you just kind of slid by it.
So it was also nice. He wasn't like in denial. He was fully accepting that he had a problem.
Yes.
Which I think was really nice, because sometimes in movies like this, the protagonist is just denying outright that they have an issue.
Which helps to also differentiate him from the previous iterations, because that's the other thing about having sequels. And I mean, I don't even know how many times Iron Man has appeared in MCU movies, but my point is, every time someone appears, I didn't even think of this back in the day. It was with actors, as they talk about the movies they're promoting. They're like, well, I guess this time around we're taking a different direction. And of all people, Tom Hiddleston, who plays Loki, was actually the person who made me aware of this. There was an interview he was doing, and he's like, look, the thing about Loki coming back this time around, we've seen him as this, we've seen him as that. This time we get to see him as someone else. And I'm like, oh yeah, because you don't want to regurgitate the same material again and again. So it's like, do what you can to make it a little different. If you think of Iron Man 2, when he was dying, there was the whole reckless behavior thing, which was, kind of avoiding the issue, even though in private he was trying to help, but in terms of the public. And so him not avoiding it this time around helps to separate the two Tony Starks in a sense. So I think that's actually, a great point on their part. And now the team up with the kid, do you have like anything to expound on in that regard?
No problems with it really. Like it's nice, it's fun, it's cute as well. Like it shows Tony's softer side, which I think is like as in subsequent movies it becomes more and more prevalent. I guess it's like the beginning of his mentorship period, his mentorship phase. It was nice to see somebody riffing off, because it makes Happy look like an idiot.
Oh yeah.
And then Pepper's like like mom vibes, but his girlfriend, his love interest, and Rhodey's his best friend. He always talks shit with. So it's nice to have somebody who can, although granted it's a child, but somebody can be a genius with outside of Bruce Banner.
Yeah, I like that they didn't force it too much. They didn't, shove it down our throats, and they didn't keep the kid longer than necessary.
Yeah.
And they made it make sense in terms of how they met. Of course, Tony's going to, was it Tennessee?
Yeah.
To, do his investigations, ends up crashing, bumps into the kid, helps him out, and then he moves on, And I like how he had such a Tony goodbye. Oh, yeah, that little tingle in your heart, I feel it too, you know why? Because we're connected. And then he just drives off, But of course, he made it up by, giving the kid huge...
Fully kitted out.
Yeah, man, a little care package, if you will.
Yeah, and I guess he's been in Tony's life if you fast forward.
All
the movies later.
What happens in the future. But I like that as a little sprinkle.
Yeah,
and then,
it's good enough.
You just keep it moving. And I think it's as good a time as any to address the elephant in the room, so to speak, the villain of it all, the antagonist. You've got your Guy Pearce character, and then you've got, the Mandarin. So that whole thing, break it down for me.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
Guy Pearce. Okay, introducing his character, Aldrich Killian. They begin with a flashback, right? 1999, Y2K. Aldrich Killian is this nerdy looking human. He's like got a scoliosis and glasses,
teeth and all of that.
buck teeth,
Typical
oily long hair. They really did well in that sense. Making that him look super nerdy. So we get introduced to him. There's also the Dr. Maya, who gets introduced to. They want to start some sort of project with Tony, and Tony's obviously in his Playboy era. Doesn't give a fuck about anything. So that's Aldrich Killian, and then Tony kind of like, like a school bully kind of thing. He promises this guy something, doesn't give it to him, and out of that, there's this revenge or hatred for Tony from Aldrich Killian, and that persists over the years and manifests into something else. And we assume that Aldrich Killian is working for the Mandarin, but we actually find out that he is the mastermind.
Yeah.
And the big reveal is Ben Kingsley being the Mandarin, which, to be honest, the entrance, just the videos was like absolutely crazy. You know, Ben Kingsley, and no, like all respect to Ben Kingsley, he played the shit out of that character.
Oh yeah, fully.
Totally believable.
Yeah.
That voice, that cadence, that tone, it just was ominous.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
But only to find out he's actually the Mandarin is an actor who's been paid to be
the face
of this operation. Yeah. So I think, yeah. So obviously the elephant in the room is just the Mandarin not actually being the Mandarin.
Yeah.
We do get it paid off like 10 years later. That's fine, but quite a while to wait.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I didn't like the reveal.
Yeah.
Oh no. I wouldn't have minded the reveal if it was a character that wasn't like integral to Iron Man's story. So I knew the Mandarin as being like part of the story, being a part of it, you know, and being a big villain.
Yeah.
And it was kind of portrayed, but not the way I would have expected. They went full left field.
Yes.
You know, it's not somebody with magic powers and a suit of armor and whatnot. It's just basically a big tech firm, biotech firm, trying to run the world, which I liked, but maybe do it with another side character, you know, or something less stature. Yeah, because Guy Pearce as Aldrich Killian, I really bought into, like, you know, the sinisterness, you know, like the total revenge story, and just like pushing Tony's buttons as well, like, you know, just kidnapped Pepper, put extremis in her, like, you know, didn't even give it a second thought.
Yeah, just went for it.
Yeah, just went for it.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, she could either survive or explode. Like, you know, it just, it's not saying you can save her, it's just like, it's on her, you know, it's, so yeah, and obviously just his sinisterness was really, really nice. It was nice to see that he's kind of like the mastermind behind things. But obviously the Mandarin and that portrayal, the portrayal of Ben Kingsley's portrayal was good.
Yeah.
It's just the character didn't like work.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think on the rewatch, I didn't mind it as much. I think the first time I was like, why? But on this rewatch, I think I'm giving it a bit more leeway because understanding that there's a mastermind behind it, and the mastermind actually lives up to being the big bad, which I think, I don't know, I know you have some strong opinions.
Yeah, man, this was definitely the element that ruined the movie for me, you know, the first time around. I was like, oh, I'm Trevor, and I'm like, no, what is this? Because again, this guy had arguably one of the best villain entrances, man. Like, we've spoken about, you know, the portrayal, the voice. My thing is around with that, the camera work, basically, you know, like the way they filmed all his stuff and then showing the distraction, like it legit seemed like, you know, a terrorist PSA, if you will, you know. So I fully bought into the character, and I was so excited again, you know, seeing Ben Kingsley in this role. I was like, oh damn, they got him in the movie, and look at how amazingly well he's doing. And then for them to just take a big old dump on it by saying, oh no, switcheroo, you know, and to quote what you just said, they went so left field with it. I think it's one thing to have that twist, but then to turn it into a complete and utter joke was insult to injury, you know, which is what made it worse for me. Particularly given the fact that I liked what they were trying to do with the Mandarin. Look, I didn't know this guy from, you know, a hole in the wall. I'd never heard the term Mandarin or anything like that. It was completely new to me. So I had a blank slate upon my first watching of it. There was nothing to compare him to, but I enjoyed what they were doing. And the twist I also enjoyed only in the sense that you've got this, you know, I don't know if you call it drug or what that these guys are injecting themselves with. It, you know, I don't even think it's spontaneous combustion. It was deliberate.
Yeah,
in some cases, in some no.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It can either do a hyper regeneration.
Okay.
And then if it doesn't take, then you just
Okay.
Yeah, spontaneously combust.
But ultimately, it's them just covering up for those, explosions that are taking place. Because obviously, any company, if your product leads to death, you're gonna get shut down. So they're like, okay, let's have this guy take, the blame for it essentially, and then we can keep doing our thing. So in that aspect, I'm like, I kind of see what you were getting at. But again, there was no need to take this guy from this amazing villain and then, making a complete mockery of him. And over to Guy Pearce, I enjoyed his portrayal in, shall we say, the modern time.
Yeah.
The whole thing of going old school and doing the flashback, and he's like this awkward looking bully and all. I feel like I don't know if we needed that scene in its entirety. The whole story could have still taken place as normal without that initial throwback, especially because there was a greater focus, of course, on the whole. What's his name now? Guy Pearce, Aldrich. His character, waiting for you on the roof, you didn't come through, I was such a fan, I was obsessed with you. Yet, if they had, I don't know, man, a slightly different angle where, he and the doctor were concerned, just to whether it's emphasized the level of relationship that they had or the level of influence that he had during their chats and advice, then it could have been a worthwhile scene. But otherwise, I feel like them just rocking up on some, hey, we met 15 years ago, you did this, I did that, could have easily worked. So yeah, that was my whole thing with that. And it's like, oh, let's go retro with it. You got happy with the mullet and it didn't do much for me, man. It was like a cute little thing, but not one that I felt was necessary to the larger story.
I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
I didn't mind it, but I think more to say going retro, it was more to show that, well, who Tony was back then.
But did we not know that? That's my point.
Yeah,
what new thing did we really gain from that flashback? Because again, the whole, he was a playboy, he was reckless, whatever. Iron Man 1 covered that so well, and we even got hints of it in Iron Man 2, because he was regressing, given his pending death. So that's kind of what I'm speaking on. There isn't anything I could pick from there to be like, because of this element, we definitely needed this scene,
But I hear you there. But I think it wasn't too long-winded. Because sometimes those scenes are very, we talked about it many times, but those scenes can be very long-winded and not add anything. Whereas here I think it was just enough, and it did add something. Not a lot, but it added just enough. That going retro wasn't the main focus of it. It was more, Tony's who Tony is and trying to get that motivation of the villain.
I get you on that, but like I said, for me it was like even without that, I think we were still being fine. But that aside, Guy Pearce definitely, he did a great job. It was almost a bittersweet moment seeing him because I'm trying to think. I don't even remember where I first saw him. Memento I saw, because Memento came out like early 2000s, but I know I saw it way after the fact, somewhere in the 2010s probably. But I just can't pinpoint where I first saw Guy Pearce. Wherever you do see him, he brings it.
Yeah.
And I would have expected him to have such a bigger career, at some point. And seeing him here, I was like, oh damn, they got that dope actor. But at the same time, you just reminded of the fact that, man, why isn't he bigger? So that was the bittersweet thing, which is of course just purely my own feelings about it. However, in terms of the movie, he killed it. He did a great job. I like how, in fact, as I'm saying this, I'm reminded of he almost did a better Justin Hammer than what we got in Iron Man 2.
That's kind of you're saying that now. That's what we wanted Justin Hammer to be.
Yes.
Dark and sinister. Yeah.
We literally, wrote that down in our review that man, he was a little too, frilly and nice.
Too flamboyant.
Had that as a cover, it would have worked a lot better. Which is of course how this guy does, like whenever he's in public, he does his whole, and I like seeing that duplicitous side, man. Like, there's the whole charming thing and trying to, get you to invest or whatever the case is. But then once he's got you, behind closed doors, hey man, I got your girlfriend locked up. She could die, she could not. Let's find out. And his willingness to kill his own partner as well. When he killed the doctor, I was like, Yes.
Didn't even think about it.
Nah, she's threatening him like, yo man, without me, what's gonna happen? Boom, God. And I'm like, yes. Whenever I speak about going there, once again, I know how sinister this probably making me sound, but I just hate the whole tiptoe thing. In case you haven't, noticed by now.
Yeah, they did go there for this movie.
Yeah, so
for different things.
I enjoyed it, and which again, the curse of knowledge as far as what happens in future Marvel movies. It's part of my frustration with they being in this purgatory state, if you will. The fact that when we talk about you guys going dark or taking a moment serious and all of that, we not even saying go as dark as DC. You've proven yourselves that you can do it within this Marvel universe so many times. We are merely holding you to the standard that you have established. That's always my point. And again, they've shown it, this time around as well. We had, Rhodey, War Machine / Iron Patriot coming through again,
I mean, what more can you say?
Yeah.
It was good fun. He's a side character, but he just brings it every time.
Yeah, he did the whole fun little sprinkle, which I enjoyed.
Well, I don't know if you noticed, like, a lot of the fight scenes and action sequences were them without the suits.
Yes.
So showing the people rather than the powers.
Yes.
Which I really enjoyed. Like, it actually showed why Rhodey, you see?
Yeah.
Thinking about other things, guys. Rhodey is like a colonel in the military, saving the president, just jumping off chains.
Shooting out that light, Tony was just out here, random shots. And he's like, hey man, are you aiming for the light? Or what's like, oh, who can shoot that? Boom! Nice and quick. And again, showing, hey man, I'm not in this position for nothing. Yeah. So I agree with you there, yeah.
And I guess Tony as well, I think when he infiltrated the lair.
Yes.
He did it as Tony Stark. He's like, Harley was like, you're a mechanic, build stuff.
Got on his, James Bond there, and grassroots. So that's why I'm like, when it comes to the elements, I enjoyed it so much in this movie. And, shout out for reminding me, when you talk about the fights, I noticed how, and I mean, you hear me complain about fights every now and then. This movie reminded me of the fact that there's two key elements to a fight scene. It's the choreography and then it's how you shoot it. So even with basic choreography, you can shoot it in a way that makes it look interesting. And if I think of some of the earlier fights, there were two in particular. The one I know is when he was fighting she was a fake agent. I can't remember what agent.
In the town.
Yeah. So when they fought in that little shop there, like the way the camera was moving around
was it like fists and kicks and like?
Nah, but
it was just
the way they were. It was like genius quick cuts, because quick cuts have become a taboo element in modern Hollywood, because that's what they use to convince that guys like Denzel Washington and Liam Neeson can like fight any sort of bad guy. And don't get it twisted, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but there are times where they go a little too far with it and the fight only ends up seeming more fake. Whereas in this one, they did it just right to make the fight look more interesting.
But it was also a smart man's fight. You know what I mean? It wasn't like
a fighter. Yeah, because Tony's not a fighter. Yeah. And you don't let him fight as one. Even if he's fighting a soldier, whatever it is, he does his own thing. Then of course, with the additional elements of, okay, I'm gonna set this trap and this trap so that the place blows up. The smarts coming through. Yes, I enjoyed that element quite a bit. So I don't know how much influence Shane Black had on this, but I mean, if he's in the writer's room and in the director's shade, we can only, give him that much more credit, basically. So shout out to him once again. Interestingly enough, he never came back to direct anything else in the MCU.
Yeah, just the one and done.
So I wonder if that was just on his part or more a matter of creative differences and things like that coming into play. But whatever it is, I'm still happy for the product that he delivered to us. One of the standout shots that I, even from the first time I saw it, hold in high regard, and even watching it again now, I was like, oh man, it still holds up, was when they did that whole monkey chain. When Tony was saving the passengers on that plane. That looked so awesome. And a few years back, this is just after the movie had dropped, I even went and watched the behind the scenes clip online. And it only served to make it look more interesting. So in watching it again, I was like, such a beautiful and amazing looking shot, And of course, I can't help but fall into the nostalgia of early MCU days where it wasn't a whole thing of filming everything inside a CGI room, because it's not even a matter of CGI not being that good. It's just the creative, the VFX guys, the studios are not giving enough time to make it look as realistic as possible. Okay. So more often than not, you can tell that elements are fake. So I appreciated how they mixed real world, backgrounds along with CGI elements instead of fully relying, on that aspect. I don't know if there's anything else for you that stood out that you want to shout out.
Cameo, Jensen.
Yes. When you mentioned the throwback, I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, that was a nice like, okay.
And remember, he did say Iron Man that we made once. Yeah.
So it's nice little throwback there.
Yeah.
Other highlights, I guess I enjoyed how grassroots level they brought it back.
I don't think we can emphasize that enough, actually. But
it really gave homage to Iron Man 1, definitely. But it did have its own spin on it as well. It had its own spin. So I think really shout out to them for just bringing it back a bit, because we just had this big intergalactic fight, and it's nice to just bring it back home.
Yes, yeah.
Which, as you say, curse of knowledge, knowing what we know now, you don't get that all that much.
No.
Yeah.
Is that the only other one?
I think also just seeing all the different suits. I think that's good fun.
Yes. Especially the in between suits, so to speak. You usually only see the very latest one. So now just to show that not only does he build multiple iterations, they are meant to serve different functions as well.
Yeah.
They all have their own design, they all have their own specialties. Like the one time where I forgot the name of it, but when that container was about to crash, and he's like, yo, and he calls one of them, and he comes and lifts it up, and you see his spine reinforced to lift up, that container, and I'm like, so he's the the heavy lifter, as it were. So I enjoyed that as well. Speaking of which, again, knowing what we know, we're just gonna ignore future events. But in the context of this movie, what do you think about the whole idea of him then sacrificing that whole Iron Man life completely? I mean, got rid of the shrapnel in the chest, therefore no need for an arc reactor for himself. He blew up all his suits, and it was that the thing of, hey Pepper, giving all of this up,
fresh start.
Let's go do our thing.
I think it shows a lot of character growth. Yeah. Because before it's like just trying to fill a void with the next best thing, whereas now he's like, actually, I think I've actually got everything I want in life.
Okay.
Let me slow it down a bit.
Yeah.
So I think I enjoy that. I don't know. Do you have any strong opinions on that?
More in relation to future events, but for now, with the context of this, because the other thing I realized was in the credits, they were throwing it back to Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2 events, almost to say we're sending Tony off. So it felt like this was the end of a chapter.
But I guess it kind of makes sense as a third movie in the, trilogy movies are usually on.
Yeah, but now what I'm getting at is he probably had his contract only ending at that point. And so they were like, okay, we're going to give this a send-off type of thing. And I think as far as closing the chapter, it did tie everything quite nicely. But again, we know what comes down the line, but we'll address it when the time comes. So in that context, I actually enjoyed it, because it's like they ride him off into the sunset, he's letting these distractions. And I mean, let's be honest, if you're in a relationship as a guy, at some point you have to give up your toys, So him then just committing fully to that. And I mean, he was like, hey, Jarvis, this was the other protocol. So it wasn't a spur of the moment thing. He had been planning it. And I'm like, man, as you said, character development. So on that front, I'm like, that was actually, a pretty solid job that they had done. And all things considered, Iron Man 1, 2, 3, and Avengers, Tony had quite an amazing run, So I don't think I would have been mad at that being the end of his chapter. I'm trying to think. From my side, I've certainly addressed the elements I wasn't happy with. I don't know if there's maybe anything else that we didn't specifically touch on.
Bruce Banner cameo at the end credit scene.
Okay.
Yeah, so the movie started off as a narrative, right? Only to find in the end credit scene that he was talking to Bruce the whole time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as his therapist.
Okay. Because I actually skipped it because I was like, they tend to show. I forgot that they mix it up.
Yeah.
In my mind, I was like, the end credits they show scenes from the next movie. I'm gonna watch the next one anyway.
I think that's not even a recent thing. Like
that's why I'm being reminded now that no, back then they would give an actual bridging thing. So yeah. Okay, I see. Then I'm trying to think. I feel like there was something else I wanted to bring up, which I've now forgotten. Oh, Happy, which would have been more relevant earlier on in our review, but just to tie things up, him now being separated from Tony, he's of course now head of security and. Yeah, any thoughts on his portrayal this time around?
I always like Happy. He's our lovable idiot. You know what I mean? It's that one friend who's just, you don't know why you're friends with him. Well, no, like he's an idiot, but you're always he's your idiot, and he'll always be there for you. And
like, you can rely on him.
And Tony exactly relied on him because he, obviously he's half dead, but pointing and looking at. He gave Tony advice to look for his investigation. Which, I give credit to Happy. He's an idiot, but he's smart. He's got his moments.
Yeah, at least writes twice a day. Okay.
Yeah, so I like that, and I guess also just I think the whole head of security was also just showing how maybe in the sense that Tony was pushing people away, kind of. With his PTSD.
Okay.
That you can't really help him unless he wants the help.
Okay.
So then you have to just go do your own thing. I don't know, that's how I kind of saw it.
Okay.
But I think I enjoyed the portrayal. We didn't get much of Happy because he was out most of the time, but I think what we got was like just enough to just say, I'm still here. And
okay, I think,
and I guess good on Marvel as well. Like obviously they had creative differences, Jon Favreau, but they kept him as an actor
and an executive producer. I was like, oh, shout out.
Yeah, so at least he was making his money. And didn't just get recast altogether.
I've got a slightly different take. I think he and Tony had this fun little yin and yang sort of thing. I almost want to say he was obnoxious in this movie, but when I think about it, I'm like, he's kind of being that, but in a funny way, he and Tony balance each other out. And so I think without Tony actively by his side, he kind of tipped towards the other end of the spectrum. To shoot him some bail, we could argue that it's probably him trying to cope and find himself without being by Tony's side, which he was for so many years. And I don't think they necessarily filled that gap. It may not have been, on their minds at all, but he and Pepper didn't have anything close to, what he and Tony had. And the whole thing about obsessing over the badges or whatever, again, maybe, early day jitters in the new role, we could chalk it up to that. But I just felt a bit odd, firstly, them being so separate and then his character kind of going, in that direction, so to speak. But again, you make a good point when you talk about Tony then not only separating himself from people, but I think probably setting them up just to kind of be their own, he's already given Pepper the CEO position and probably felt like, no man, Happy, it's also time for you to elevate as well. But I missed the whole riff-raff and the back and forth between the two of them, without a doubt. And that pretty much from my side is all the elements I wanted to cover.
Yeah, I think I'm okay. How would you rate this one in comparison to the other two Iron Man movies?
In relation to the other two Iron Man movies, this is the second best one.
Okay.
Yeah, without a doubt. And overall rating, I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Yeah, I'm thinking about the same. 7 out of 10, super rewatchable movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Rewatching it doesn't do it any disservices.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think 7 out of 10 is a fair number and well deserved as well on the rewatch.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. Like I said, this time around I felt, oh damn, maybe I gave it a little too much flack back then. And shout out to them for being so disciplined and keeping it a self-contained sequel. Because again, it's very tempting to try and bring everything and everyone into the mix.
Yeah, there weren't any cameos that I can think of. Like Thor had Captain America, but Iron Man 3 didn't actually have.
They still just
Nick Fury wasn't there.
Kept it as its own thing.
Okay, you did have Bruce at the end, but
but that's
not part of the
post credit type of thing. Yeah, so Shout out to them for that. So now, where would we rank this in our Marvel top five? Again, if I recall correctly, we've got Iron Man 1, we've got Avengers, Captain America, and then Thor 1. Is that everything? Iron Man 2 would probably then be, a default 5.
And then Thor 2 is just
In there.
not.
Thor 2 is definitely not in the top 5. Yeah.
Okay.
So, does this deserve to be the top 5? First question. Second question, who gets knocked out? I already have my answer.
Yeah, so you said it was Avengers.
It was Iron Man. No, it was Iron Man, and then Avengers, and Captain America. And then, what did we have before? Thor 2 is the last one.
Yeah, so Thor 1.
What are we missing now? I just
don't
named
know.
5 movies. Okay, let me
Anyways, if we're going top 3, I think the top 3 stays the same.
Yeah, so it's still going to be Iron Man 1, it's still going to be Avengers, and then Captain America. Yeah.
And then I would actually start in, I think, Iron Man 2 at number 4.
Iron Man 2.
Not Iron Man 2, this one.
Iron Man 3
Iron
at
Man
number
3
4.
Yeah.
And then Thor stays, I suppose, in number 5.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's fair. So are we saying that Incredible Hulk is not in the top 5 either?
Yeah. So, I mean, I liked Hulk.
In relation to these movies?
Yeah,
also.
in relation to those, I think so. Because I definitely liked Hulk. But more for like...
Or let me put it this way. Incredible Hulk versus Thor 1. Which one you got?
I think Thor 1.
Thor 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thor 1, better character development.
I can respect that.
Yeah.
Mainly because of the fights. The story was great in Incredible Hulk, but that fight at the end just,
I'd definitely say Incredible Hulk has a better visuals in terms of just the Hulk.
But that's versus Ruffalo as opposed to all the other Marvel movies. Okay, cool. So we now got Iron Man 1, Avengers 1, Captain America, and then
I would say
Iron Man.
Do you agree with that? 3.
Yes. Yeah. Iron Man 3 and then Thor. Yeah, I could roll with that top 5. With that, we got to the end of our review. As per usual, feel free, let us know if you agree, if you disagree, hit us up in the comments, drop a like, drop a subscribe, follow us on Instagram, the Phantom Geek Zone, and then we'll catch you guys at the next one.
All right. Cheers.
Peace.